of land shows over 500 blocks in the different sedimentary basins of the country, which are available to be nominated. The map with the pre-designed blocks will be announced in a couple of weeks, but it is almost ready. We just need to make some final arrangements. In all the areas offered by the Hydrocarbon National Agency, this is moving forward already, and this is an obligation. There's an obligation to inform and to look after this.
La Ronda Colombia 2021 busca incentivar la perforación exploratoria como camino.
Y de los que han sido nominados. En las 32 áreas que están en este momento activas o siendo ofrecidas,
the 2 areas that are being offered, we have identified 150 territorial entities, 137 of which require an information meeting, and 60 have been carried out, so we can say that there is a progress of 43%. We hope that in coming months, we will cover 100% of this process, which is an obligation prior to the offering of areas. So we are in the right pathway in such an important process that is the consultation with communities. This is like the gravity center, and it's the new contracts minute. This is a contract that divides exploration and production stages, as we are going to see shortly, in order to provide more flexibility to the exploration phase, but it grants rights in case of discoveries, and you can move to the exploration phase, provided the obligations of the exploration contract have been met. So it is not an automatic step. So from exploration to production, it has to go through the verification of the compliance, social obligations with environmental licenses, with the payment of economic rights, and also a verification the company complies with the requirements in order to move on to the production stage, based on the type of area and based on the type of hydrocarbon that has been discovered. So it has like an intermediate checking and compliance the production contract. At first, we had offered an agreement by means of which we had 2 independent contracts, but based on a dialogue with, it has been decided to have only 1 contract with the production right. Provisions of the exploration stage are met. This is an exploration stage which is flexible along the lines of the exploration activities. So this is a 6-year period to be could be extended, in which companies will have the freedom to execute the exploratory program that they consider convenient. They can amend it, or they can move forward at the speed or at the pace required, provided it is done during that 6-year period. If they need to extend this, it will be under certain specific conditions related to the economic value of exclusivity. We're going to be explaining this concept further on. Prior to the beginning of the exploratory period, we have maintained a contract characteristic that it's something that arose in 2010, and that is of incorporation is for the necessary consultations community with which it is mandatory to proceed with the consultations. This preliminary phase will have a 12-month period in which it will have been possible to do the consultation and to decide if it is necessary to move forward with the consultation or if the consultation has not been successful. The award variable for the proposals in the exploration and production agreement is a value that we have called exclusivity economic value, which is the value being assigned by the company to an exploratory block with exclusivity and with production rights based on the discoveries in the process. This exclusivity economic value should not be paid upfront in the country. This is equivalent to what it is called the signature bonus in other jurisdictions. But actually, it is going to be possible to grant a bank guarantee for that value, which will be determined as we'll see later on. There is an incentive regarding borehole drilling. It is, okay, the economic value of the exclusivity is going to be determined in units corresponding to the value of the drilling of a well. The minimum offer is that of one exploratory well, and the award variable is a whole number of wells in such a way that if a company offers to drill a well and the other one offers to drill 2 wells, the second one will be awarded the contract. So these are exploratory wells of the type A2, A3. The incentive works as follows. During the exploration stage, once a well has been drilled, then the value of the company's guarantee will be reduced based on the value of that well. So if they have drilled a well and if a commitment was to drill a well, then the exclusivity economic value is returned to the company. If the commitment is to drill 2 or 3 wells, then the amount of the guarantee will be reduced to the extent they are drilled, and those that are not drilled, then you'll see that that value will depend on the exclusivity economic value. For the production stage, that is of 24 years, that could be extended based on the regulation for 10 more years if there is a program for a improved recovery. We are going over all the contract clauses, so it will go back to its original spirit of the year 2010, when it was a contract geared towards private law, which is a characteristic this sector has, in which exploration and production contracts are regulated by a private law. In recent years, we have had an evolution towards public law, which gave the state more rights to intervene in a contract. But now we are aiming at a better balance based on the experience we have had throughout these years. So this is the characteristic of the new contract. We will be offering more details when the revised minute is published and once its publication is authorized by the board of directors. after going through a consultation process with the industry and after receiving more than 300 suggestions, after taking them into account, and after looking for a break-even point that would be satisfactory to the parties. However, this minute is still subject to consultation in order to proceed with the final adjustments, and we have enough time to define it before the date of the auction. We are also organizing some workshops that we call Zuncas in order to present the contract's detail and to have like a Q&A session. We had a first cycle during the first months of the year. We're going to repeat this cycle as of this launching. And we will continue opening the spaces for presentations, comments, until the last day, until the timeline for the presentation of proposals. The economic value that we are estimating as minimal proposal based on the type of area is summarized in this chart. For exploration contracts with production rights, the minimum is equivalent to one exploratory well, which is equivalent to 650 points. Each point has a value that in terms of US dollars, depending on the area and depending on the reference value determined for the areas, is between $6 and $10 million. So a company that wants to present an offer for a well, they will have to have a guarantee from $6 to $10 million, depending on the area. Once the well is drilled, then the proponent is released from that obligation. I mean, they could present a proposal for the number of wells they consider they can drill. As to the areas of technical assessment onshore, as the ones offered in Chocó, we consider that the minimum value is equivalent to a seismic between 540 and 600 kilometers of seismic, which have a value between 540 and 600 points and an estimated value of around $5 million. And offshore, in the areas of technical evaluation, a minimum seismic of 200 kilometers, which is equivalent to 800 points, estimated in $7 million. The table based on the type of block and on the type of basin will be available on the rounds webpage. And there you will have access to more details. This is an approximate data of these programs, but it depends on what on how are they going to be translated into. As I said before, the areas that are going to be available are determined by similar polygons. I mean, whether they are onshore, offshore, mature, emergent, or border areas. As we have previously said, for those companies that want to prepare for this process during this period until October, we are going to see the timetable later on. They will have the alternative of statements or technical and operations of the year 2019. At the end of 2019, taking into account that 2020 was a typical and the financial statements could be distorted given the circumstances. So they can use data of 2019. As we have previously mentioned, we can transfer activities or exploration investment to areas contracted that are the areas offered or incorporated in the Round Colombia 2021. This facility that was opened this time is that it could be geared towards new areas, and this is going to sort out many of the difficulties faced by the companies in order to deploy their investments because of logistics reason or because of social conflicts. There is an invitation for the award of technical assessment contracts and also for exploration and production contracts. The areas could be nominated to be incorporated by the company. As we have said, we already have 4 areas requested. They have been nominated, or the 28 areas that ANH is offering. All these areas are subject to coordination and attendance procedures. The permanent process for allocation of areas is constantly open for the companies that want to prepare for this process. However, it needs to be, they need to be ready for this, whether to present proposals or to present counter proposals the day of the corresponding round. The new thing here is that we are offering the possibility of presenting proposals for technical assessment contracts. The details will be clear once they are published in ANH's webpage and through the different workshops that we are organizing. We also have something new here that was tested in a pilot project in the 3rd cycle of last year for the permanent process, and that is to open a blockchain option in order to deposit those offers, which means that they could be uploaded in this blockchain from anywhere, even from the headquarters of companies. And this is safe, it is transparent, because it is revealed only when the proposals are opened. Well, this is a technical detail about the blockchain. It is safe because it is distributed. So it is very difficult to access this or to hack it. Once the offer is there, no one can change it. So it's unchangeable and it could be shared. So we offer this facility for those companies that wish to use it. The experiment last year was quite successful. It is friendly in its use. You receive the training, and we can also receive proposals in sealed envelopes that will be received in a ballot on the day of the auction. However, this is a facility that hopefully is going to be used quite frequently in the future. The timetable, as you can see there, it started already with the announcement of the characteristics of this round. It is open to new companies until August 31st. Those companies that were ready for the 3rd cycle last year, automatically they're ready for this cycle. So we will be receiving new ones, and also those companies that want to improve their capacity to acquire blocks. If they wish to do so, they can present these like preparation documents until October 19th, and we're going to receive requests to incorporate areas. So we have 4 months ahead of us or 5 months ahead of us, so you can start preparing your request. The 3rd milestone is the publication of the land maps updated with the areas offered by ANH and nominated areas. For that, we give you until October 26th, that is 7 more days. Once the land map is published with the final areas incorporated after the validation process, we'll give you until November 11th. The proposals depository, I mean, those companies that nominate areas, they have, it's mandatory for them to prepare a proposal or to pay a penalty, which was of $100,000 last year. How come? Because a nomination forces us to go through a coordination and attendance process and some validations that imply time, effort, and resources. And we do not want to waste that. That's one of the lessons learned during the first and second cycle. A number of areas were nominated, an excessive number of areas were nominated. There was a lot of waste when it comes to resources, and proposals were not presented. So whoever nominates an area, they do it because they are sure that they are going to be presenting an offer. Otherwise, they'll need to pay a sanction that, as I previously said last year, it was of $100,000. Once the proposals are in the repository in a hybrid ceremony, that's by November 26th, so whether, I mean, the companies decide if it's on a sealed envelope or blockchain, we'll have some time to validate the proposals just to make sure that they are all valid. That is until December. This proposals repository will be within the framework of the conference that will take place from November 26th to 29th. They'll be validated by December the 2nd. And then the counter proposals repository, it's going to be through a hearing or that nominated area, and they want to match the counter proposals, they can do it in that ceremony. And on December 17th, the areas without a counter proposal will be awarded. And on December 20th, the areas subject to a counter proposal. So that is the timetable. Here you have the milestones. So you have until August 31st to present the documents. You have until then, October 19th, to request the incorporation of areas. And then we have November 26th proposals, a deposit, and counter proposals until December the 20th. Well, the requirements, it depends if the company or the joint venture is operated by investors. I mean, it is presented here. They have to include the legal, financial, economic operation, technical operation, environmental capacity, and also the social responsibility. And it's not of the branch offices, but of the headquarters. So we have 3 participation stages. First, you have to nominate the areas and to present proposals, or to present proposals to the areas offered by ANH. The second opportunity will be the presentation of counter proposals for areas that already have a proposal. And the third opportunity is for those that nominated area, the possibility of matching those areas. This with respect to the process. Now, as to the technical characteristics of the areas, and in the interest of time, I mean, I have to move fast. I took longer, but Mr. José Miguel de Armas is going to go over the characteristics of the areas and mainly the facilities that we are going to have in order to have a vast knowledge on the information available. Good afternoon to each and every one of you. Can I have the presentation? We'll continue with the same presentation. Well, here, the round 2021 is going to focus on 9 basins. We have the areas offered in mature, such as Valle Medio del Magdalena, Valle Superior del Magdalena, and Los Llanos. I identified them on the map. You see the green one, the blue one, and the light blue. We have 2 emerging ones to the north of Colombia, Sinú, San Jacinto, and Valle Inferior. And in the western part of the country, we'll have 4 areas, border areas, as was mentioned by Mr. Zamoro. That is Urabá, Chocó Continental, Chocó Offshore, and Tumaco Offshore. For better understanding this round and to encourage the participation in the round, we have organized some packages, grouping them on basins. Urabá will be by itself, but the 3 areas that you see of Chocó, they are part of a package of joint data. And in blue, you have the Pacific offshore. You have 4 areas in a package. We continue with this bluish color. 4 in the Valle Inferior del Magdalena, which is like purple. 3 in the Magdalena Mid Valley, the Mid Magdalena Valley, which is like orange. And also in the Upper Magdalena Valley in blue. And you have some of light crude that is in yellow in the northern part of the basin, and others that are in green that in the southern part, which are heavy crude. So in green, heavy crude, in yellow, light crude. As was mentioned by Ms. 20 E&Ps in the western part of the country offshore, and 8 which are the technical assessment contract that are in the northern part, Urabá, starting with Chocó and ending on the Pacific. In the continental part, you have all the basins, Sinú, San Jacinto, Llanos Orientales, Sinú, San Jacinto, Valle Inferior. Okay, so we have 4 areas that have been incorporated to now. You see the black circle in the lower part of the Magdalena Valley, 2 in the mid Magdalena Valley, and 1 in Los Llanos Orientales. These are our volumetric data for all the basins. What we have here, 1,257 barrels recovery, and the other one is for gas in the BCF. Here we have the economic value, which was mentioned by Mr. Zamora. I'm not going to dwell on it, but we would like to invite all the companies that are registered with the agency to visit us in our data rooms, for you to contact the corresponding group. We have data, geological brochures on the basins. We have prior assessments by ANH. We have data rooms, seismic lines, technical files, boreholes, and the Pretel products. And this applies for those companies that are part of the process. I would like to say that the agency has been preparing this round with much responsibility in previous years. Like last year, we had a project during the second half of the year that it was called Prospective Corridors in the country. And this way, we have assessed border areas, and we have tried to convey that information to each and every one of you through technical workshops on Fridays from 8 to 10 in the morning. This way, we have covered 9 technical workshops up to now. So we have some good news. So all these workshops have been recorded for you, and your documents are in our files, so you can consult them anytime. Well, I wanted to mention what is it that we have covered. The Colombian North Coast, that is Cuenca, Colombia. Also the Urabá basin, Cuenca, Urabá. The one of Colombia, it's not part of our files. We're also covering Sinú, San Jacinto, Chocó, Valle Inferior, Valle Medio, Valle Superior, Llanos, y Cuenca Pacífico, Costa Afuera, which is offshore. These are some workshops from April 9 to June 4th. This was together with universities, which helped us in this technical effort. This was our first cycle, and now we go to our second cycle, where we are going to be very responsible every Friday. And my apologies, a lot of people have written asking about tomorrow's presentation, which is June 11th. We have postponed it to June 18th, given that we didn't want for the launching of the round to lose interest. In this second cycle, in these 2 months, we are encouraging you to take a look at the areas promoted by the agency. So you be encouraged to incorporate those areas where the country has really done quite a good job, as well as ANH. And we're going to be on June 18 with DIMAR. The agency has worked with DIMAR since 2007 to date in the marine basins on the Caribbean, on the Pacific, and then we'll continue with Cauca, Patia, and also the Eastern Mountain Range, Catatumbo. There we have the agency interpreters with Catatumbo on July 9th, Guajira Continental and Guajira Offshore with the Universidad de Pamplona and its experts. Caguán, Putumayo, July 23rd, Cesar Rancheria, July 30th. And we will adjourn this with conventional and unconventional resources, which have been prepared and updated by the agency. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, José Miguel.
Thank you, José Miguel. Now, continuing with the agenda, we will be sharing a video on the Round Colombia 2021. The bet of the national government for the recovery of the hydrocarbon sector. A new model for the allocation of areas. A broad portfolio of opportunities. A simplified contractual model and state-of-the-art technology. It's a window of opportunity for investors. The Round Colombia 2021 aims at incentivizing the drilling in order to increase deposits and production. Now we would like to move on to the second part of this presentation, giving the floor to the Vice Minister of Mines and Energy, Miguel Lotero, who will address the audience on behalf of the national government. And then we will continue with the agenda with a conversation that will be presented by Maria Jimena, Vice Minister. Thank you very much, President, and thank you very much to all the attendees. Here we are receiving a report that we have more than 220 attendees. And in translation into English, we have over 40 participants following such an important event, such an important launching. From the national government, from the Ministry of Mines and Energy, together with the Hydrocarbon National Agency, we are pleased with this activation of the hydrocarbon sector. And since we started in the government in 2018. We started with this. I think that President Zamora just mentioned this. This was not left in words, in addresses, in national development plans. In this permanent area allocation process, we can say that today we have 35 contracts awarded, 30 of them with as the E and B projects, and 5 that are technical assessment contracts that became E&P contracts. After a long drought of 5 years, where we didn't have any contracts registered, and where this hydrocarbon sector needed that oxygen. We are part of the Colombia round, as we just saw in the technical presentation, one in which we have been explained about the details of this round. We have 9 basins in the country. And 1 week ago, at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, together with the National Hydrocarbon Agency, we had announced and we had informed the country that we had an important challenge ahead of the new deposits. It is quite a challenge, because even though we maintained with crude deposits for an important number of years, we had a relevant drop in deposits of gas, where we went from 8 years to 7.7 years. So we consider this a warning, where we have to adopt priority actions, and this is one of them, in order to increase those deposits. Priority actions, because when it comes to gas, at the national government, we have promoted within our plans at these 2 topics in which gas and hydrocarbons play quite an important role. The first one, closing the gaps, bridging the gaps. Remember that in Colombia, around 8 out of 10 families use natural gas in their daily lives. Today, we can say that by the end of 2020, we were of around with 12,000 users that were connected this year, in order to reach 5.5 million users throughout the country, regarding this necessary service and this energy that is necessary for the livelihoods of Colombia. It is important to mention that that total of 10.5, around 10.2 million use this at their houses. So these are household users, and in this path to bridge the gaps, we continue connecting new users, and we can say today that we have a coverage of this service of around 77% throughout the country. Secondly, why is this important, and why do I consider that this topic is a priority for the national government? Because we are in a pathway of energy transition. Energy transition with hydrocarbons, long life hydrocarbons are very important in our daily lives. And along these lines, we have considered not only gas as one of the important fuels for energy transition, provided that they reduce in 40% greenhouse gas emissions when you compare it to another type of energy resources, and it reduces particulate matter, improving the air that we breathe in Colombia. When Minister Mesa started with his functions as minister, one of the first things was to work on those zero emissions hydrocarbon, and this because we wanted to adopt low emission fuels, and we have adjusted the national park to natural gas, and this is still relevant. It is important to increase deposits for this reason. We had a very complicated 2020. Mr. Zamora referred to this aspect. It was a very complicated year in which hydrocarbon production and crude production touched a floor of 732 barrels, something that we didn't see for a long time. So this went together with a world crisis around prices and around world production. And this round, Colombia 2021, is a sign that this sector wants to move forward, that the conditions are there to move forward. And as we said, we have a very well-structured Colombia round. The team of ANH has really worked hard in order to submit all the information required by stakeholders, analyzing the rules to create a transparent and safe process with all the available state-of-the-art technology in order to deliver stakeholders, investors, some rules of the game as we have always had in Colombia. Obviously, better design and strengthen. So the message I would like to convey here is to invite you to participate in this round, Colombia 2021. And we know that by the end of this year, we're going to have significant results in these 28 areas, 20 EMP and 8 of technical assessment contracts. And to remind you that here we have a safe country for investment, that our doors are open to clarify any doubts, to answer any questions, and to have clear and transparent rules in order to have a successful process. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Thank you for being here with us today. Now, resuming our agenda, as I previously said, we have 2 channels in order to participate in this launching. You have the YouTube channel of the Ministry of Mines, where you're going to find this launching in Spanish, and the channel of ANH, where you're going to find it in English. On the other hand, I would like to remind our friends from the media that we are receiving through this same channel the questions, and please include your name and the media that you are representing in order to leave the questions for the end of the launching. Now, continue with the second part of this launching. We're going to give the floor to Carlos Bellorin of IHS, who very kindly has accepted the invitation of the Hydrocarbon National Agency. And he is going to support us and tell us how do they see us in this process, in a process in which we are participating in a very articulated manner. Carlos is Associate Director of IHS, responsible for research and analysis of E&P terms and risk on the land, energy and natural resources. So, Carlos, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. Yes, thank you, Maria Jimena, for this invitation to moderate this dialogue in the launching of the Colombian Round 2021 with the President of ANH and with the Vice Minister, Mr. Lotero. Good afternoon. The idea behind this conversation is 3 questions. Let's start with the Vice Minister. And my first question is, taking into account that the round Colombia 2021 is one of the key factors of the current administration, what is expected with regarding self-sufficiency when it comes to energy and economic reactivation, not only for the hydrocarbon sector, for the country in general. Thank you, Carlos. Good afternoon. And well, welcome to this opportunity that we have been given. We have been kindly invited by ANH. And as it has been said, this is something that we have built in an articulated manner together with this sector and the Ministry of Mines and Energy. I mentioned this in my address. Last week, we informed about deposits, and I'm talking about important deposits. We have some challenges that place us around the topic of energy self-sufficiency. We have had a drop when it comes to gas deposits, and thinking about this, thinking about that self-sufficiency that you have mentioned, we have not, we are not just sitting down and waiting to allocate these areas, and this is why we have this 4th cycle together with ANH that we have called Round Colombia 2021, where obviously we have around 28 areas, as it has been previously mentioned. And this self-sufficiency challenge is one that we consider very important and very close to the citizens, in the sense that the responsibility as a national government, as responsible of the energy policy, is always to provide public utilities. I'm talking about liquid fuels, natural gas received by citizens on an ongoing and permanent basis. Hence, this is a challenge that we have, and this Round Colombia 2021 is an example that shows that the government wants to guarantee that self-sufficiency. At the end of the day, self-sufficiency is increasing the public resources that exist in order to spend, in order to favor citizens and to provide public utilities to those citizens that use this on a daily basis. Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Very interesting. And I can certify that ANH, through the rounds and through everything that they've done in the area of self-sufficiency, has been like their core. Thank you very much. Well, my second question is for you, Armando. We know that this round, Colombia 2021, has included many new things, many significant changes. Which could be the most relevant milestone, if you can mention one? I think that the most relevant change is the flexibility that we are introducing in the exploration stage. With 400 contracts that we have in force, and with the regulation of prior contracts, we see that it was almost impossible to manage all this. I was saying in one of these dialogues that it's like playing a soccer game of 5 against 100. And we need to have a contract that is manageable and that offers the companies the responsibility for exploration if there is an economic value behind it. We have to forget about this parenthood figure and to stop sanctioning, a sanction here, a sanction there. That's just a waste of time. So to have more flexible contracts in order for companies to configure, to amend, and to move forward in their exploratory work as they consider it more advisable. It is, I mean, time is very valuable and we cannot waste time. Thank you very much, Armando, for your answer. Yes, I think that flexibility indeed is very important, and to work hand in hand with the industry to learn about their concerns. Vice Minister, my second question for you. Almost ready to start this round. What's the climate regarding investors and potential investors? And another sub question is there an interest for the blocks offered or for those that could be nominated throughout this process? How do you see this? Yes. The first question regarding self-sufficiency, we are focusing it, taking into account public finance and citizens. I think this question is important because we have to take into account investors who are the ones interested in this process. And I have already mentioned this, that we have clear rules of the game and we have a transparent allocation process. ANH has strived to achieve this in order to disseminate these rules which are necessary for the participation in the process. And I think that in Colombia, in spite of the situations that we are experiencing because of the pandemic, because of some social protests that we have had for some weeks now, we have been able to consolidate and to show that we have strong institutions. And in that sense, This has enabled us to make good use of this wealth that our subsoil offers. And I think the interest is there. Some minutes ago, with the Vice President, we were mentioning that we have around 250 people connected to this meeting, and this shows that Colombia gives rise to an important interest in this. Yes, thank you, Vice Minister. Yes, in one way or another, Colombia is always being considered by investors, and the rounds of ANH together with the ministry are also very important. And my experience is that ANH has always set a trend within the industry. Well, Mr. Armando, the agency is working in a new contract model, one in which exploration became the main axis. My question is as follows. Why did you decide to give this orientation to this proposal, and which incentives did you include in order to attract investors? As I have previously said, the exploratory period gives rise to all sorts of problems on a daily basis for the management of the mentioned contract. And the rules of the game should be easily managed. We cannot be on an ongoing process going after the companies so they will comply with their commitments. So we are treating them as responsible adult companies, companies that know what they're looking for. And we have changed. We have changed the stick for the carrot. That is that we are offering an incentive so they can move forward as much as possible when it comes to exploration. What is the incentive? As we said in the presentation, the award variable of these contracts is the economic value of exclusivity. So to have that exclusivity for 6 years has a value. Otherwise, no one will sign a contract. We are asking for this to be shared with the government with a very low base, which is equivalent to drilling a well, estimated in its monetary value. So by presenting that proposal, then the company commits to paying a sum to the state. But what's the incentive behind this? If the company drills the exploratory well, which is the minimum we're asking for, then that value is returned to the company. It is deducted from the guarantee. So it's almost free of charge. They do not have to share the economic value, the exclusivity economic value with the state, because they have complied with the objective, which is to drill. So it is an inherent incentive, which is an incentive for activities to take place fast. The quicker it is, the lower the guarantee cost. So we have the opposite, the perverse one, which is that of delaying the activity, asking for postponements, for transfers. So the agency has always been flexible, but this really gives rise to management wear per se, even for that same industry. So as I said, that transformation from the stick to the carrot will make of the exploration something more pleasant, and this way the companies will have the flexibility and will not need to justify why didn't they comply with the exploratory program. In addition to this, you have an ex-ante exploratory process, which is very difficult to comply, because to the extent things happen, you have to adjust circumstances. There are many unforeseen events, new natural parks and communities do not allow the exploration there. So flexibility has a value, and that's part of that exclusivity economic value. Very interesting. Well, we can call it exclusivity and flexibility economic value. Both things have an economic value. And that is very interesting because you align the interest of ANH, of the state, with that of the investor. Well, the last question for Armando before concluding, before giving the floor to the Vice Minister. And now that you have mentioned the exclusivity economic value, including the exclusivity economic value has given rise to doubts within investors, and you have touched on it very many times, but it's to reassert this message, which is the incentive of ANH to the industry in order to reduce this concern. I know that you have touched on it, but I think it's a good idea to reassert that. Yes, the original proposal was to pay the exclusivity economic value as a signature bonus, which is nothing new in this industry. However, given the circumstances and given the reaction of the industry and its suggestions and the joint or seeking jointly something that is beneficial for both, accepting that we have that exploratory process that is guaranteed with a bank letter. It's much easier for the companies, and just at the end of the period, if that activity is not carried out, then the letter, it's sort of cashed. But you have some ways out. There is the possibility that in the middle of the phase, they will withdraw, and only half of that banknote will be cashed per se. So we are offering that facility. Before concluding, before wrapping up, and before giving the floor to the Vice Minister, just to supplement the question that you asked him, the interest is there. We have felt it. We have measured it. Each workshop has around 200 participants. In average, 12, 15 countries of the world, there is an interest there. But the proof is in the eating. We have to see how many offers we have, and that is what we are interested in. That's why this process is constantly adjusting as time goes by. And I think it is very interesting to see how the pandemic has forced us to change the ways in which we promote these processes. And we are achieving a more important effect than walking around the world with a suitcase. Getting together, meeting people in the lobby of a hotel in London. So it has been quite an experience to capture the interest of the industry through these virtual means. Yes, Armando, as you have said, it is incredible what you have said around the exclusivity economic value and the flexibility value, because one of the key factors now in this situation is to reduce the cost, and this reduces it significantly to investors. Well, Vice Minister, to wrap up this dialogue, the last question is for you. We know that the hydrocarbon industry is vital for the country's economic development. My question is, how can we achieve the balance between the sector and the energy transition towards renewable energy? Carlos, I think there is something important there. We must always mention this when we are asked this type of question. One cannot understand the concept of energy transition without hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbons are linked to the concept of energy transition. They are fundamental for energy transition. And that is how we have accepted this concept of energy transition. It is part of our development plans. It is part of our policies, mid and long-term policies. We have seen it like that. And first, we have an important gap that we need to bridge when it comes to natural gas coverage. Two, it is very important to take into account the uses of cleaner fuels such as gas or liquefied gas, oil, where we have given important regulatory signals, and where we are seeing our first test in the country, where we have vehicle parks that are running with liquefied gas. And some industries have accepted the pilot projects that we have set on the table. And three, the most important one, that is that without the royalties produced by hydrocarbons, in many regions of the country, we could not reach with those signals of energy transition that even replacing hydrocarbon with electricity using solar panels. And this is fundamental in a process, one where you bridge gaps, and second, you have a democratic energy transition where all the Colombian population can participate. So, Carlos, hydrocarbons are necessary in this process of energy transition. Yes, I fully agree with you. And within that context, Colombia, as part of the region, is one of the countries that have gone a long way when it comes to that. It's not a new concept to us, that of the use of hydrocarbon in Colombia and renewable energy. ANH has been one of the institutions in the world that has set the stage for that, also when it comes to contract management. And I am sure that you're going to be able to validate this process of energy transition. Well, I just want to thank you for this invitation, Maria Jimena, Mr. Zamora, and also our Vice Minister. And I am positive that the round is going to be very successful, and I wish you much luck. So now I would like to give the floor to Maria Jimena. Thank you very much, Carlos. Well, now we are going to be answering some questions. Thank you, Maria Jimena. Good afternoon to all of our colleagues who have sent the questions.
¿Por qué es necesario y sobre todo por qué es considerado este como el combustible de la
Why is this considered the energy of transition? We have considered this as one of the fuels of transition because it is clean energy when compared to other energy products that we have been using. In order for this not to be left in words, we can see this in the last auction that we had on the reliability charge, that all the plants that were awarded, that they work with gas or with liquefied gas. 8 out of 10 families in Colombia use natural gas on their daily lives. And 3, we have a clear coverage policy of the gas service in Colombian households. Today, we have reached a goal of 75%. In the National Development Plan, we have set a goal in these 4 years of reaching a number of users of 1 million in order to have a total sum of 11 million users in the country with respect to this important service. So this is very important when it comes to the goals of the national government, hence the relevance of increasing the deposits. Why is it attractive to invest in Colombia when compared to other countries of the region? This is for Mr. Zamora. During the last 10 to 15 years, in a consistent manner, Colombia has been presenting some characteristics for investment with respect to legal stability, respecting property, which are considered as the best in the region. If we compare ourselves to other producing countries of the region, we have clarity with respect to the role of investment in this sector. We have more than 100 years of productive coexistence between the state company, which is still the most important company by far, a protagonic role, but it also opens opportunities to private companies. So we have an institutional regulatory scheme, a contractual scheme, and legal stability, and this is one of the best in the region. But during the past 15 years, we have discovered the new hydrocarbon potential that we have, that it's much better than what we had 15 years ago. The Putumayo, unconventionals, the gas, and well, in onshore and offshore, these are new horizons. And in addition to having the best contractual and legal framework, we have a prospectivity that is much better as time goes by. The balance between the fiscal conditions that we offer is optimum. Why do I say that it is optimum? Because we have a very important indicator since we are at this point, and that is that during the last 15 years, our deposits have remained quite stable. Notwithstanding this, we have consumed 5 billion barrels of oil for deposits of around 2 billion. So those 5 billion have been replaced, and it's an average substitution rate of 100% year after year. What does it mean? It means that if we increase the contractual conditions and if we charge more, most likely the deposit substitution is going to be lower. If we drop it, it will increase, but then we are going to affect the income. So we have a very good balance, a very good regulatory and contractual condition. And we have something that is very important that has not been mentioned here, and that is that investors say what happens in Colombia with all these social problems that we have. And the good news is that the hydrocarbon topic is not on the table. There is a national consensus on the role played. Here we do not have winds of nationalization. So everything indicates that the interest of the country is there, and that we continue adjusting supply in order to work with investors in this period of energy transition in which we still have a wealth in the subsoil that we must take advantage of. Which is the deadline for the presentation, and how much does the rating takes place? I think it was August 19th or 20th. Well, those companies that were pre-qualified this year are still qualified until August 31st. They can be qualified. Another question for Mr. Armando Zamora. Of the blocks proposed which have gas vocation, which have crude oil vocation. Well, let's say that to the extent that we move towards the north, the blocks have more gas prospectivity. So the blocks on the Atlantic coast, onshore, Sinú, San Jacinto. But when we move towards the south, it's more heavy crude. In the mid-Magdalena Valley, the north of Llanos Orientales, there's more prospectivity of liquid. But we have to say that when it comes to volume, the most interesting ones are those of gas, which is the fuel of transition. It is there where we have more potential.
que tengamos mucho éxito con esos bloques.
So hopefully we'll be successful with these blocks. Vice Minister, the ministry has insisted on the reactivation of hydrocarbons. What is the balance up to now? And how do you expect to continue on this pathway with the Colombia 2021 round? I think that's a very interesting question. We have insisted on that. I have mentioned it. We have mentioned it in plans, public policies, and the actions that we have adopted with ANH. We have to say this. This is one of the topics that was left not only in policies and development plans. That is something that we can still show in this process when it comes to the allocation of areas from 2018 to now. We have mentioned this many times. It has been mentioned by Mr. Zamora, and I've also mentioned it. We have entered into 35 new contracts after almost 5 years of drought. 35 contracts, and 30 of them are of exploration and production, and 5 are of technical assessment. So that reactivation is still important. We had a very difficult 2020, and there we had different negative ingredients that were added up to this industry. However, this industry has been very resilient when it comes to these conditions, and today we can continue using them. And at the national government and at ANH, we continue believing in that. That's why this fourth cycle that we have called round Colombia 2021, where we have really seek a transparent process for all of the investors. Thank you, Vice Minister. Mr. Zamora, the new companies that want to credit their capabilities must present the same forms as 2020, or is there any modification when it comes to this new round? No, the forms and the requirements are the same. You have to choose the options and operational data of 2019 or 2020 based on what they decide, because for 2019 was a normal year, 2020 was an atypical year. So these are the same requirements, but the documents could be of 2019 or 2020 for the accreditation. Mr. Zamora, increasing the public and free data, that's an incentive for better proposals, mainly new areas. What are the strategies of the national government regarding this? Yes, ANH has always wanted to have the information available at the lowest cost. The only cost to be assumed is that of managing the oil data bank, that it's part of the Colombian Geographic Service. So, I mean, it's not that they're going to become wealthy with the supply of data, but they charge what it costs to manage that system. Nevertheless, ANH for the blocks offered is offering the data free of charge and access to the data free of charge. If they want to extract them off or to have a copy in the geological service, that's optional for them. And in the future, and José Miguel de Armas, technical vice president who is here with us, has insisted on that we are starting a negotiation with the geological service in order for ANH in its promoting role will fund the geological service so they can offer the data free of charge to interested companies and even to universities and to researchers, etc. So we are working on it, and I really thank you for this question because it gives us the opportunity to inform about it. So we are adjourning this press conference with the following question that is sent by José Rodrigo Giraldo. I want to congratulate you for incorporating new technology as blockchain to avoid fraud, but have you used data analytics to assess the investment portfolio? of the assets.
Digamos que el proceso de transformación tecnológica que
The technological transformation process that we call NH 3.0 started with layers. The first thing is the automation of all the processes. The pandemic was the right opportunity to eliminate all that paperwork, and now we have ready certain things with our own resources or with our own staff. Colombia has the possibility of developing technological tools, and that is something that we are experiencing now. In some months, whatever was paper became electronic. The reports are uploaded online, and the information can be accessed remotely. And on an ongoing basis, we are offering these facilities on the web page. And we are achieving an automation level. During this first stage, all the paperwork will be virtual, and all the validation processes will have what we call machine learning.
La introducción de la inteligencia artificial y data.
The introduction of data analytics and AI will come in a future state. It's not that close. It's under our radar. Up to now, we are starting first with whatever goes first, the daily activities, and we'll get there pretty soon. Well, now to close, we have this last question. How many companies are interested in this new round, and how much interest there is in new companies? It's difficult to answer that question. Just to give you an example, Canada, which has been a very important partner of this industry, a source of investment resources, and many companies have been incorporated and have grown in Colombia. Last week, we had a dialogue, and there were at least 40 participants. Most of them were companies, new companies that are not here. So the interest is quite high. It is very high, as in the best times, and it's kind of a paradox because this industry is subject to much pressure in order to change its investment to energy transition. But that pressure is felt on the large corporations. The investors, activist investors, are being forced to change their investment portfolio towards new energy. We've seen it in the BP, Shell, and many others that have mentioned this. But there are markets that are not subject to those pressures of activist investors. There is a lot of money in the market because of all the incentives in North America and in Europe. And they know that during this energy transition period, and because of the withdrawal of large companies, they are going to create investment possibilities. And Canada is one of the countries that can channel those resources in this sector. That's why I'm not surprised with the interest of Canadian companies. They have the vehicles to participate in this type of niche, which are small and mid-sized opportunities, without leaving aside that we maintain the interest. For example, offshore, the interest in offshore, Shell, we have ExxonMobil in unconventionals. We have a rich portfolio of companies and of interest in Colombia. Energy transition, as was mentioned by the Vice Minister, doesn't imply that hydrocarbons are going to disappear overnight. It only means that we have an advantage of opportunity that is going to close if we do not take advantage of the wealth we have in our subsoil. So what we are doing is expediting this use in order not to lose this opportunity forever.
a la Agencia Internacional de la
And I
Energía
want to send a message to the International Atomic Energy, that even though there are many discovered deposits to satisfy the demand of hydrocarbons during the transition, the deposits are concentrated in countries to which we are not going to give a mass transfer because they are wealthy already, but we're going to use our energy to satisfy our demand, and we're going to continue discovering new deposits. So those that remained in our subsoils will not be ours. Well, another question of El Universal de Cartagena. What about the investments resulting from this round Colombia 2021? We want to allocate 15 blocks. And the investments that we have mentioned that are of around $5 to $10 million, we are speaking between $70 and $150 million as a minimum investment in exploration. Now,
la matemática pues no es complicada, pero si esos 15 bloques generan 15.
But if those 15 blocks give rise to 15 blocks and 2 of them are productive, then the average of new deposits is of around 20 million barrels per each one of these areas. So we are speaking of 40 million that in its economic value dollar per barrel. So then the expectation for the state is of $400 million in these 15 blocks. But for the time being, the investment in risk exploration in the next 6 years is between $70 and $150 million. Well, we want to thank the Vice Minister of Energy, Miguel Lotero, and the President of ANH, Armando Zamora, for this opportunity in the press conference to answer the questions after the presentation of this round Colombia 2021. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending, and we are adjourning this launching, thanking all those who have participated. And we remind you that this is recorded in the YouTube and in the ANH channels. Thank you very much.